All right, today we're going to be doing something quite a bit different than my normal videos, which you can already tell is not me just talking over a still shot of a slide. Um, Bear with me, things might get a little hokey. I don't normally do a lot of editing, video editing anyway, but I really want to show a video and comment on it because yesterday, Capturing Christianity released a video with popular level Christian apologist Frank Turek, and it was emblematic of like everything wrong with popular level Christian apologetics. Just dishonesty, uh, yeah, basically lies. And I really wanted to cover it and show the video in case it ever gets deleted because I really do think it is simply that bad. So if you will bear with me, we're going to be transitioning scenes, playing a little bit of the video, and I'll be providing commentary at different points.
And this one is another one from our patrons. What is the number one roadblock among college students that keeps them from accepting the gospel?
Sex. Next.
Next question.
Because they don't want it to be true.
Okay.
Look, I mean, the people out there who are watching, I ask people on college campuses all the time, if Christianity were true, would you become a Christian? An atheist will stand at the microphone and say no. And when I talk to them privately, they'll admit they don't want to live up to sexual Christian ethic or the Christian sexual ethic. The elephant in the room in the college campus is not, the same thing is true on YouTube. Elephant in the room is not evidence, it's sex. People want to live the way they want to live, and they don't want anyone telling them or anyone else how they have to behave sexually, despite the fact that they still believe in certain sexual rules, right? You don't have sex with children, it has to be consent, so they still impose rules on it. But
so how do you...
Okay, so there was so much there that to kind of go over. So Frank is saying that the reason Christianity is simply failing among the younger population is not because of a lack of evidence or Frank Turek's shitty popular level apologetics, is because people just want to have sex. And he goes at this incredible claim that atheists will stand up in front of him in a microphone in an auditorium with people and will say, I would not become a Christian even if Christianity was true, right? That's pretty shocking. So I'm just going to skip ahead a little bit here to where Frank kind of repeats it, and we get a little bit of detail.
Always ask him, if it were true, would you become a Christian? When they say no, what else can you do? You can just say, well, God gives you the free will to do what you want to do, make the choices you want to make. That's why this is a moral universe, because we have free will and we can make these choices.
So how often does that happen, that they say that if it was true, they wouldn't believe it?
Oh, most
happens
of the time.
All the time. Really?
Yeah. I mean, there are some that'll say stuff like this, Cameron. They'll say,
see, I'm just really incredulous about that. Like, it seems weird that people would admit that. And maybe it's because we live in a sort of postmodern culture that doesn't care.
Okay. Cameron does a good one. Cameron does a very good one here and expresses some skepticism at a frankly outrageous claim. And he pushed back ever so slightly in what is ultimately a very friendly interview against what Frank says. And here, because of that tiny little bit of pushback, we get to see the lie revealed. This is emblematic of the kind of dishonesty you will find in popular level Christian apologetics. Let's see Frank take it away.
About truth.
Or they'll say it this way. If you ask them, if Christianity were true, would you become a Christian? They'll say, yeah, but you couldn't prove it.
Oh, yeah.
That kind of thing, which really means no.
Okay, that's it. So they didn't say, even if Christianity was true, I would not become a Christian. They said, well, yeah, I would, but you can't prove it. And now we get to watch Cameron basically undo his good thing and do a very stupid and bad thing.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah, you can't prove with 100% certainty.
Yeah. Okay. You can't prove atheism with 100% certainty either, but you're claiming to be an atheist, so what's your...
Well, hey, wait a second.
Okay, so Cameron goes and interjects and says, builds a straw man, basically, by saying, oh, well, you can't prove Christianity with 100% certainty, as if that's what the person who said that they would become a Christian if it was true, but Frank can't prove it, as if that's their rationale. Well, let's apply this the other way. Would you become a Muslim if Islam were true? Or a Mormon, Hindu, Buddhist? Pick one, basically. And are you going to be like, well, yes, I would, but it's not true, or you can't prove it's true? Does that mean you're saying that, or you can't prove it true with 100% certainty? That's a straw man. Nobody proves anything with 100% certainty almost ever. In fact, Cameron has videos going over the absurdity of 100% or absolute certainty, right? So really what I want to highlight here is that Frank presented an outrageous claim at the beginning that atheists will tell you that they won't become a Christian even if Christianity is true. But in actuality, what they say, and what Frank interprets as is saying they would never convert even if it was true, is that, well, I would, but you can't prove it. Well, no, it just means they're not convinced by your arguments, and there are channels a lot like mine and many, many others, just like any other metaphysical question, that will push back on your shitty arguments to believe in a God, and even worse arguments to believe in Christianity, and they're not going to be convinced. There's a lot of room for doubt. As a matter of fact, Cameron has other videos in which he admits that atheism is a rational, defensible position. He has people like Graham Oppy on, who's one of the brightest philosophers of religion of our time and one of the best atheist philosophers of religion, and he's had other amazing philosophers of religion on as well. So to say that, the reason they won't accept it is because they just don't want it to be true, because they want to have sex? Really? That's why they just want to live the way they want to live. So it doesn't matter about evidence. First of all, that's complete bullshit. And what Frank's doing is, you could see his dishonesty in the first instance where he talks about what atheists supposedly are saying, then when he reveals what they actually said. What else is he misrepresenting? Well, let's talk about this sex thing. You see, it's not really so much that people want to have sex and therefore they just won't believe. He's kind of glossing over an actual argument, a very, very good argument against Christianity in specific. Let's go with it this way. Premise one, Christianity teaches that sex outside of the confines of heterosexual marriage is morally impermissible. It's wrong. Premise two, sex, regardless of marital context or gender, between consenting adults, is morally permissible. Conclusion, therefore, Christianity is false, because Christianity has a false moral teaching. Right? So if you accept premise two, then the traditional Christian teaching on sexual ethics means Christianity is false, right? Christianity can't have false moral teachings, right? At most you could do is you could try to see, and I've actually seen a couple of Christians when I mentioned this on Twitter, say that, oh, well, Christianity doesn't actually teach that sex is only moral when in the confines of heterosexual marriage, which is hilarious given what the Bible says and what thousands of years of tradition do here, right? And so if you want to say, like, well, how do you justify premise two? You might want to say it's false because what about people who are committing infidelity, right? If you're married and have an affair. Well, the sex isn't what makes that wrong. It's breaking your word with your spouse, right? That would make it wrong. As long as you have two consenting adults, right? And you have to be an adult to give consent, et cetera, informed consent, right? But the premise is defensible. And so you would say, well, what justifies it? Well, the same thing that Frank uses to justify the moral arguments, premise two, and that objective moral values and duties exist. I just intuit, right, that there is nothing wrong with it. As a matter of fact, we can look at how society behaves, and the vast majority of people, including Christians, have sex before marriage, right? And the reason that we had this old prohibition, realistically, right, is because long, long, long ago, when these sexual rules were written, there was no birth control, right? If you had sex, chances are you were going to have a kid, right? If you were heterosexual sex, right? And, contraceptives were not particularly effective. Fast forward to modern science, and more specifically, the birth control pill, right? You have modern condoms produced in modern manufacturing methods, and the birth control pill, you use them in combination. It is 99.9% effective, right? So when I went to college, basically every heterosexual couple was having sex, and they were using one or more methods of birth control. And guess what? They didn't have kids until they got out of college and then got married or just wanted to have kids and had the kids, right? So the old rules were there for sort of a reason, right? That there were good practical reasons, and then birth control removed those reasons. And now, in the context of birth control, we don't have the problems that would have resulted previously, which is why the moral thing was there. And no one's harmed, right? There's nothing bad necessarily happening with all of this, other than it's falsifying the moral teachings of Christianity and other religions, which is a problem for Frank and everybody else. So that's, you can just kind of look at the effect and say, well, what harm was done, right? And you could espouse different meta-ethics, right? And we're going to get into Frank's little precept here in a minute. He mentions how, they still have rules, as if an atheist can't have rules or morals, right? He's just kind of presupposing the truth of the moral argument and the vast variety of both anti-realist moral positions as well as atheist-compatible realist positions, which I've detailed on the channel before. So basically, Frank is doing some pretty shady work, and he's ignoring a strong argument against his own position and glossing it over, well, you just want to sin. So I want to just transition here to where Frank goes a little bit into what is ultimately a sales pitch, because you'll notice he's got a book. It's highlighted right here, and I think it came out a little while ago, but it was the pandemic, so we couldn't really do a book tour. So ultimately, I think what this video is a product placement for Frank, and it's also beneficial for an up-and-coming Christian apologist like Cameron Bertuzzi in Capturing Christianity, so that they can have a popular Christian apologist to interview. So let's take a listen.
Blank stare.
And you see, that presupposes that this is a universe that is reasonable and has evidence. This is what I'm trying to do in the book Stealing from God, is pointing out that when atheists say they have reasons that there's no God, or that atheism is true, or materialism is true, or quantum vacuums, or whatever they want to say, they're actually stealing an orderly universe from God in order to say that God doesn't exist. They're stealing our ability to reason. Why should we be able to reason about things outside of our skulls if there's no God, if we're just molecular machines, if we're just moist robots? We shouldn't. But that's what they say we are. We're moist robots. So why should we believe anything they say?
Okay. Now, let's go explore this a little bit. So this is sort of like a diet presuppositionalism is what Frank's engaging in here. So he says, well, why should atheists are presupposing a orderly universe in order to make the challenge. And somehow you can only have an orderly universe if God exists. Well, you're just presupposing that premise in your argument, right? You're presupposing that a universe with a God in it would be orderly. Why? Right? Oh, well, God's a mind, and minds are rational, and minds are orderly, and they follow the laws of logic. Well, what's your justification for that? Oh, well, I have a mind, and so I have an experience of rationality. Okay, well, then you're just using a reference to your own rationality and then saying that there somehow must be a mind by supposing that if a mind is not at the center or foundation of reality, that it would just be chaos. Well, that's not what an atheist thinks. That's not what an atheist presupposes. And there's no way to evidentially show that if God didn't exist, the universe would just be chaos or would not follow order. As a matter of fact, as we see and observe the universe, we find that it obeys certain rules. I like to describe the laws of nature as a description of the way material reality behaves, and it just is what it is. I happen to think my particular view of what logic is that it is also effectively like a law of nature, and that it describes how material reality behaves. And so we have the law of identity, law of non-contradiction, all that sort of stuff, because that's how material reality just is. And so we don't have to suppose that God exists in order to have those rules, right? It's a foundational assumption. Both of us have to make assumptions, right? He's talking about reasoning and, oh, what if we're just moist robots? Well, first of all, we trust robots, right? If I buy a Roomba, you could buy a lot of robots. But if I buy a Roomba, I could put it down in a flat area in my house within the confines of what it is and what it's supposed to do, and it will learn the outline of my room and vacuum it. And it will go back to its charging station, find where its charging station is in context of the room that is as it discovers, and it will rationally, right, using logical programming and an algorithm, define a room that of which it has never been in before, right? So to say that if God didn't exist, there would be no basis for that to happen if we're just a moist robot, well, that's just to beg the question against the atheist, right? You're not allowing the atheist the same sort of assumptions that you yourself have to make, right? And you see this a lot in precepts. This is like the game that they have behind their little script. And so one of the foundational problems of philosophy is that, like, you can't validate memory without referring to memory, and you can't validate sense perception without referring to sense perception. You can't validate your reasoning without referring to your reasoning, right? So this is just foundational for any view. Now notice they like to say, well, God reveals to us that he is good, he exists, and we are rational, right? You can't have a revelation unless you understand language and already understand logic and understand your sense perception, right? You have to have the sense input of God revealing himself to you. So you have to trust. You already have to presuppose and trust all of the things that the presuppositionalist is trying to validate in order to even get a revelation. And then you have the problem of saying, well, how do you know it's not an evil God who's lying to you? Did God reveal that he wouldn't lie? How are you going to trust that, right? It's basically pointing out and kind of not stating your own assumptions that you need for your own worldview to get off the ground, and then denying that your opponent can even do so. And then when they attempt to show that they do, they go, oh, well, you're just referring to your reasoning to validate your reasoning, when that's exactly what basically everyone has to do. We trust our reasoning and our faculties and our cognitive abilities based on practical necessity, effectively. I think that's the way it goes. And then we can validate the reliability of our sense perception, yes, by self-reference, but we have no other option. There is no way to do that. And so basically, Frank wrote an entire book on a really shitty and easily disprovable premise, but given that he's the guy who wrote a book titled I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist, which implies that faith is itself something bad, and if you have to have too much of it, it means you shouldn't hold the position, but he's trying to convince you to become a Christian and have faith in God. He's not the brightest bulb in the batch, and I'd like to think that this video exposes exactly why popular apologists like Frank Turek are not worth the paper they're printed on.